Welcome to Parenting GPS, navigating your parenting journey. I'm Kari, Kling, the host and creator of your show. You know, those toddlers, they're so adorable, and sometimes they can drive people a little bit crazy because you're trying to anticipate what to do, how to deal with them, how to prevent the meltdowns. I told Celia, our guest today, that I wish I would have known her when my twin boys were toddlers. I know a lot about toddlers, but I didn't really know a lot about having two of them at the same time. That was surely a great learning experience for me. And so our guest today is Celia Kibler. She is a globally recognized expert on toddlers, podcaster, author, and I'd like to introduce her to you by reading her bio now. Celia Kibler is a best-selling author, a family empowerment coach, and founder of the Day of Calm Foundation, Pumped Up Parenting, Fun Fit Family Fitness, and the host of the Pup podcast. She is the mom of 5 kids, 2 she gave birth to, and 3 she gained from marriage, as well as the grandma of 9. She has successfully parented a blended family for over 27 years. Celia is on a mission to stop 10 million parents from yelling at their kids. Her book, Raising Happy Toddlers, How to Build Great Parenting Skills and Stop Yelling at Your Kids, is available for purchase from Amazon in Kindle and in paperback. She has written 3 children's books to enhance the development of kids. Being Different is Fun, I Am Grateful, and All About Me. Celia believes that the more parents understand their children and themselves, the better they can communicate and relate while building trust and respect within a nurturing, fun environment. Her reason is simple. We're raising adults, not children. With over 40 years of coaching, teaching, and counseling kids and their parents, including special needs populations, Celia has found successful solutions for real-life parenting situations with advice that is easy to follow, doable, and result-driven. She brings that wisdom to you in her book, as well as in private and group coaching programs. Celia, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, Kari, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, I am so excited to have you. And I'd like to begin, before I start asking you questions, by sharing with our viewers your definition of what a toddler is from your book, because I have to tell you, it cracked me up. So here it is. You have 2 definitions. And the first one is toddler. It's a noun. 1.5 to 5 years old, an emotionally unstable, pint-sized dictator with the uncanny ability to know exactly how far to push you to utter insanity before reverting into the cutest little lovable creature you've ever laid eyes on. And the second definition is a wild, out-of-control beast that lashes out, then laughs, then cries, then screams, then hugs, then laughs, then screams. It honestly can go on, and then runs crazy through the house, then trips and falls, then drops into a deep sleep, all in a matter of 20 minutes. Celia, anybody who has ever raised a toddler or had a child while they were a toddler can relate to what you were just talking about. And so let's begin today by telling us, how did you get to this point? How did you become a global expert with toddlers?
Well, first of all, I discovered long ago that they were my people and I love them and I relate to them. And I guess I'm an old person with the brain of a toddler, so I think a lot like them. And I have worked with them for over 40 years. So I do teach and I have a kids fitness company, and the majority of my classes focus on the age between 11 months and 5 years. So I've been working with toddlers and their parents and have become quite an expert on their behavior, their likes, their dislikes, and really what creates cooperation. And that's for every human being, and that's respect. And so often respect is lost in people's parenting journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I agree with you, and I see it so much in my parent coaching, and it's not deliberate. It's really frustration of just, people get to the point and they kind of lose their cool because they don't know what else to do. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they don't take the time to understand that this small human is not just a small version of them. This is not a small adult that hasn't grown up yet.
Right.
This is a whole different ball game because they have a very underdeveloped brain. And our brains don't develop till we're 25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a game changer for a lot of people because they just think they're talking to an adult,
Mm-hmm.
and when, you know, they don't respond or
Mm-hmm.
they don't listen, then their parents get irritated and frustrated and overwhelmed with the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
They start yelling, their kids start yelling, and it becomes a big screaming match. And they don't know what to do or how to handle it.
Right. And then the kids learn as they grow up that screaming at people is the norm, and that's how you get things done. And it begins this whole cycle that you and I have, worked with people for so long to try to break. One of the things about that, Celia, is you talk in your book, and your book, Raising Happy Toddlers, is so wonderful. And I just really want to encourage anybody out there that knows someone with a toddler in their life, someone who maybe their child's still a newborn. Get this book and keep it on your nightstand as a reference. It's really, really powerful. But you talked about that, and one of the things that I say all of the time, Celia, is that parenting is the only role that I know of in life where you just become a parent. There's no background classes. There's no, take this test. I'm not saying there should be, but the point is we're all just thrown into this role of being a parent without any background for 18 years and all of the things that can happen. And then yet parents feel badly when they feel like they don't know what to do.
Right. It is the single most important responsibility that we have in life.
Mm-hmm.
And it is probably the responsibility that is taken so lightly,
Mm-hmm.
where parents don't feel like, they need help or they should get help
Mm-hmm.
or they should find out what will make their family more harmonious and more cooperative,
Right.
because there are techniques and strategies that do that.
Right.
They feel like, oh, well, I don't need that. I was yelled at, I was screamed at, I was parented this way, and I came out okay. Well, ask yourself, did you? Did you come out okay? Like, what are the effects of you having been yelled at all the time? And
Mm-hmm.
those same effects, those little voices in your head, is exactly what you're planting in your child's brain for
Mm-hmm.
them to deal with the rest of their lives.
Right.
If people realize that we would be more intentional with parenting our children, then maybe we wouldn't have this billion-dollar industry of therapy, and people could actually blossom from their childhoods instead of having to recover from them.
Yes. And one of the things, and it's a famous quote, and I talk about it all the time, and I can't think right now at this moment who said it originally, but the things that children hear from the time that they're toddlers are the voices, if you will, in their heads of the things that they hear being said about them. And so, you know, I know that a lot of parents say, well, I told them not to do it, or I told them whatever. It's not about the words. It's about they have to learn through the experience and role play and show them and modeling and right.
Exactly. And offering them things to take responsibility with. I always tell parents that if you're starting a sentence every time with I told them, I told them, I told them, you are just bossing them around constantly. What happens to an animal that's caged and always told what to do? They become rebellious. Well, your
Mm-hmm.
child will too if they're never given the ability to actually be creative, be more independent, make choices,
Mm-hmm.
test out limits and boundaries, have consequences
Mm-hmm.
when something doesn't go right or they make a choice that's not so great. Learn from their life. Give them
Exactly.
the opportunity to learn, to fall down and pick themselves up again.
Exactly. And to tell them why. So instead of just saying good job or way to go when they do something that you have asked them, tell them why. You used responsibility by doing whatever. And I've had parents say to me, "Oh, well, they can't understand the, responsibility at 3." Well, if they know Tyrannosaurus Rex and Triceratops and all the
Right.
dinosaur names, just as an example, they can get responsibility and initiative.
Absolutely. And they
Yeah.
should have responsibility.
Yes.
They should be learning. If they can stand up and hold something, they can start cleaning things up and they want to help.
Yes.
Kids ultimately want to feel big. So let them feel big. Give them the opportunity to stretch their arms and legs and feel like, oh, I am a big kid. I can take responsibility for this.
That's great advice. And in your book, Celia, you talk about being a proactive parent as opposed to a reactive parent. You're kind of going with that right now with what you just talked about. Can you elaborate on that for us, please?
Absolutely. The problem is often with children and teens and kids as we're raising them is that something happens and we're reactive. We just react to it. We emotionally react to it. That's where yelling comes in, that's where screaming, that's where frustration comes in. We never take the time to examine what's going on. And I know many parents are out there listening thinking, who has time for that? I
Right.
get it. I raised 5 children within a blended family, all successfully without yelling. But the point is, when you have a little child at home and something is constantly causing them to react, something is constantly causing a tantrum, look at it and figure out what is causing that. Why do they always react this way? People say, well, whenever I say no, they break into a tantrum. Well, then what are you doing? Or is there an opportunity to give them a choice, to empower them through a choice for something that's negotiable? Is
Mhm.
there an opportunity to help them learn how to react to a reaction of disappointment, anger, being mad, things not going their way? Because welcome to life when things won't go your way. And they need to learn how to react and not have a tantrum.
Mhm.
I just saw this video of this guy in a McDonald's raging, like so mad he had to wait in line or something, throwing food all around. Guess what? That's a tantrum. That is the same thing a toddler is having, and that person never learned how to control or regulate their own emotions.
Mhm.
That is your job. So you have to, instead of just react and just giving in, please don't give in. Learn what the situation is. Was there a
Mhm.
trigger? And what can I do to either create a better environment so they react better, even if they get disappointed or mad, that's okay. But teach them what they need to know to understand how to handle their emotions.
That's great advice. And I want to add, I know you talk about this in your book, with consistency. We can't be that way one time and then the next time just snap or
Absolutely.
whatever. Because kids will learn to anticipate. And I just want to add, Celia, one of my core beliefs about working with families is that we always have to start with the body. And so you mentioned about triggers. And so I just want to put it out there to parents also. Look and see, are the meltdowns happening at a certain time? Could your child be hungry? We're going to talk about all of this in the second segment. Could they have an infection? Could they have a food allergy? Is there something that I know a lot of children with the red dyes and some of the other dyes and preservatives, if they have it, they just can't control themselves. And so really start with the body also and say, what is it? Is there something environmental, internally or externally, that's causing this?
Absolutely. I will ask parents, because tantrums, of course, are so prevalent with toddlers, and my clients learn to reduce them. So there are very few and in between. But one of the first questions I'll ask them is like, what time of day do they
Mhm.
seem to have a tantrum? And the parent will say, well, actually, like, I think they're late afternoon. It never even occurred to me to
Yeah.
think about that. So what's going on in late afternoon? Are they tired? Have they eaten in the last 3 hours?
Right.
Have they had something to drink? our major triggers are hunger, thirst, overwhelm, and sleep. And they're our triggers too as adults.
Yeah.
So if you haven't slept well, guess what? You're irritable and you may react in a way you didn't intend to react.
100%. You are right on, Celia. And I know that there are a lot of parents out there with toddlers that are really concerned about, okay, but I'm just trying to get through the day and the morning routine and the night routine and eating. And when we come back from the break, we're going to start to talk about some of those specifics of ways that perhaps you can just tweak what you're already doing and make your life a lot smoother and easier with your toddler. We'll be right back. Celia, in the first segment, we started to talk just really about more general things regarding toddlers. And I really am so eager to share your wisdom about more specific things with our viewers right now. And so I want to begin by talking about something that so many people, like hold their breath when their kids turn 2. We hear about the terrible twos and the temper tantrums. You mentioned about temper tantrums already. What advice do you have for parents whose children are going through that right now about how to decrease the meltdowns? I know we briefly touched on it already. What else would you like to share about that, please?
Well, I can actually give our listeners a little golden nugget. And that we talked about being proactive. We talked about offering choices when things are negotiable, not when they're not negotiable. And often I will tell parents about a wonderful transition choice that they can offer their children. And so I'll share that with our listeners now because it really helps transitions. If they're playing and you want them to take a bath, or they're watching a show and you want them to come to the dinner table or something like that. And the beauty of it is, if done correctly, is that you empower your children. And like we mentioned before, it also gives them a time to learn responsibility for what they chose. Because when someone makes a decision, we want them to be responsible and be in integrity with what they said they would do.
Mm-hmm.
So a transitional choice looks like this. Your child is playing with their cars. And normally parents would walk in and go, come on, it's time to go to dinner. And they're in the middle of playing with their cars. And parents may think, well, they're just playing with their cars. But to a child, they are involved and enjoying what they're doing. And it's important to them, no less important than when you're on the phone with somebody and they come and interrupt you and want your attention immediately. And you send them away and say, I'll talk to you when we're done, when I'm done with the phone. It's the same disrespect if you walk in on them and say, I need you to come to dinner right now, put your cars away. So what can you do different? Respectfully, you can say, hey, honey, I see you're playing. Would you like 1 or 2 minutes to play? And then it's time to come eat dinner. Your child will choose 2, or depending on how young your child is, they may choose 1, or they may say, which is more? In which case you can say 2 and they'll choose 2. Now, at this point, you have to get a verbal agreement with them. You have to actually say, okay, honey, what are you going to do when the alarm goes off in 2 minutes? Because I'm going to set an alarm for you so you don't forget. I'm going to come eat dinner. Perfect. Set the alarm. Make sure the alarm is near them. Don't take that alarm back in the kitchen, because if you have to come back out and say the alarm went out, you've just like destroyed the whole thing of them taking responsibility for their choice. They should hear that alarm. They should react, and they should stop playing and come to the kitchen. Now, I know many of you are saying, no way, that doesn't happen. Or you're saying, I already do that. I tell my child 5 more minutes and I set an alarm for 5 more minutes. That is not the same thing. You are telling your child 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
You are not asking them to choose a time to stop, 1 or 2 minutes, 2 or 4 minutes, 3 or 6 minutes. The choice is up to you as far as what the time options are,
Mm-hmm.
but you're leaving it to your child to choose, to agree to stop, and to take responsibility when they hear that alarm go off. I
Mhm.
have been doing this so many years with my 6-year-old grandson that I'm telling you, when that alarm goes off, before I can turn around, he is putting stuff away and getting up and going to do the next thing that's on our agenda.
It's
It is very empowering.
very
And
powerful.
yeah, it gives them a little control over a life where they don't have a whole lot of control.
And what advice would you have for parents that say, you know what, I did exactly what you said, and they still sit there or they want one more minute? How would you encourage parents to respond?
Okay, so if you say 1 or 2 more minutes and they go, I want 4, your only response is, honey, that's not the choice. The choice is 1 or 2. You choose or I'll choose.
Mhm.
Don't forget that. You choose or I'll choose, because they know you're going to choose the lesser of the 2, even whether
Right,
you would or not.
right.
So when you say you choose, then they may begrudgingly be like, oh, okay, 2 minutes,
Mhm.
whatever, but they're still choosing.
And
Or
go
if
ahead.
they do the whole thing and the thing is successful and 2 minutes goes, the alarm goes off, and then at 2 minutes they don't do anything, that's when a consequence comes into play.
Mhm.
They didn't do what they said they were going to do. Now there's a consequence, whatever that consequence is, which should be related to what is going on. So I'm not
Mhm.
just going to offer you a blanket consequence, because consequences need to relate to the crime.
Yes. Again, the thing is to be consistent and follow through.
Yes,
So many
absolutely.
parents I know that I work with good intentions say, well, now you're not going to be able to play with those toys after dinner or whatever the consequence is. But then they allow that to happen. And so it takes away the power of what
Exactly.
you're trying to do.
Why should they listen to you if you don't follow through with what you say? They're not going to listen to you. And a consequence should be repeatable. So every time something occurs, that same consequence happens.
Mhm.
And you should also have encouragement.
Yes.
I offer my clients a scoreboard. It's a great system that encourages kids to cooperate and listen and speak kindly and all of that. And if your listeners want it, I'm happy to pass it along if they send me a message somehow.
Thank you. And we'll be
However
sharing
that
your
is.
your contact information at the end
Okay,
of the
good.
show. And so speaking of these transitions, I know so many parents, not just toddlers, but mostly toddlers, I think, really are frustrated with the nighttime routine. What's your best advice about getting kids to transition when they're tired? You're tired, you have to brush your teeth, read your story, whatever the order is that you do things in. What is your best advice for parents?
So nighttime routines are golden. And, if I ask a parent, do you have a nighttime routine? Yes, we do. We go upstairs, we brush our teeth, we go to the bathroom, we go to bed. I'm like, but they don't understand that a routine is a step by step process. If you want your child in bed by 7:30, that routine starts at 6:30. And at 6:30, you go upstairs, you take a bath if you do that each night. You go potty, you brush your teeth, you read books, you sing a song, you tell a little something about what you love about each other, and then you go to bed, lights out, good night, walk away. Do not do the one mores. One more drink, one more hug, one more potty, one more this, one more that. They will one more you to death. Say, I'm sorry, honey. It's time for go to bed. I'll see you in the morning. I love you. Walk out that door.
Mhm.
And keep consistent. Back to consistency. The beauty of a routine is once mastered, it is a habit. And keep in mind that our brains have a rest mode. They actually have a rest mode. When you and I put on our pajamas, we signal our adult brains that it's time to rest. That bedtime routine does the same thing to your child, and it puts the brain into I'm about ready to go to sleep mode.
Mhm.
We don't want to put on electronics. Electronics put party mode in our brain. We don't want to party.
Right.
We want sleeping. So no electronics an hour before bedtime.
Mhm.
Stick to that routine step by step. And if you want to empower your kids a little more, talk about it and let them create the routine with you.
Absolutely. And I've seen parents even make a chart, okay, we brushed our teeth, we, put our pajamas on,
Absolutely.
whatever. What I'm hearing you say is the more we can empower our toddlers and be consistent, the greater chance we're going to have as adults of making that routine run more smoothly. And the same for a morning routine, the same
Absolutely.
idea. And so at the beginning, Celia, you mentioned, and what I read in your bio is about your goal to help 10 million parents stop yelling at their kids. And I know you know that so many parents will say, well, they don't listen unless I yell. Where would you encourage parents if there's someone who is a yeller? And a lot of people, and I'm going to do a whole show about this, but it's the parenting cycle. We all parent unless we really analyze what happened and we want to change it. Most of us parent the way we were parented. So if we were yelled at, we might just, that's automatic. How can you encourage parents, and what would you tell parents who feel like, I'm yelling at my child too much? How can they break that cycle?
So when I talk to parents, and I've already hit over 1 million parents that I've helped, I ask them, why do you yell at your child? And I get 2 answers back for the most part. One is, I don't know any better. And that's someone who was raised with yellers, and that's all they know. And that's okay, but you need to learn a better way.
Right.
The other is, and probably the most common is, well, I ask them really nicely. I use my manners, and I ask them again and again, and they don't do it, and they don't do it. And then I finally get irritated and I yell, and then they listen to me. Well, here's the problem, parents. The problem actually in that scenario is not that you're yelling. The problem is you're asking your child over and over again to do something with no consequence. You want to end that cycle. You ask them once, they don't do it. You go up there and the consequence follows.
Right.
If you want your child to get off their tablet and you say, honey, it's time to get off their tablet, even better, use the transition choice that I told you earlier. But if you go say, honey, you need to get off your tablet, it's time to take a bath. And they'll say, okay, I'll be off in a minute. Okay. You come back, they're still playing 5 minutes later. Don't ask them again.
Right.
Say, honey, it's time to be off your tablet. If they don't turn it off, guess what? Tablet's fully portable. Pick it up, take it, turn it off, the end, gone. And now you can even say, well, honey, you've lost that tablet for 24 hours. You can even put a consequence. The reason they listen when you yell is, number one, whenever you yell, they're afraid of you. And I don't think you want that. Number two, that's when you're serious. So that's when they take you seriously. You actually train your child not to listen. When you ask them over and over and over, they know you're not serious till you yell. So they'll get 15, 20 more minutes of game time or play time or whatever's going on time.
Yeah.
Because they know until you yell, then you're serious.
Absolutely. And you mentioned about the tablet. I just want to throw this in there, and I know you know about this and agree with it, I'm sure, is if you look at the research that's coming out, and I've done shows on this about time in front of a screen, the AMA says, I think it's up through 2 years old, like none,
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's not good. And to tell your kids, it's not good for your brain to grow and learn to be on this, so much. And so you're not just, trying to control them, you're telling them, the why.
Yeah. And people fall back on it too much to babysit their kids. Well, I'm busy. Like, you and I are about the same age. We grew up when there were no tablets. There was no internet. And we had to, guess what? Occupy our time, which we did successfully.
Yes.
And we found things to do. We were imaginative. We were creative. Our parents did not entertain us 24/7. And guess what? That is not your job either.
Exactly.
Kids need downtime.
Exactly. I always say, don't be your parent's CEO or your child's CEO, chief entertainment officer. You don't have to do that. Let them come up with things. And so, Celia, one of the other things that I know is such a huge issue with so many very young children is the issue of being a picky eater and not wanting to sit at the table. And, I don't want to eat that. I don't like that, whether it's the taste, the texture, whatever. One day they may like it and the next day they don't want it. What is your best advice for parents about how to deal with a picky eater
Well, the first thing I recommend is that you guys eat together as a family as much as possible. I know it's not always possible, and that's fine. But as much as possible, eat together, because when you eat together, you role model good eating habits and table manners. And everybody's eating the same thing. Do not be a short order cook, and do not assume that your child is not going to eat something.
Mhm.
People will automatically make hot dogs for their kids when they're having, like a pasta meal. Don't assume. I remember going on vacation once with my in-laws, and they made the kids hot dogs, and we were having shrimp. And I was like, who are the hot dogs for? And they're like, the kids. I'm like, my kids are eating shrimp because they love shrimp. And it's like, but often parents automatically do that. Mac and cheese, hot dogs, French fries, and they make these things that are considered quote unquote kid food. When if you just sit and you make a meal and you put it in front of your children and everybody eats the same meal, they will learn to eat it too, because the option is not there not to. And remember that your fist and their fist is a portion size.
Mhm.
So your fist is twice the size of your child's fist. Often we like slump on a whole bunch of food and it's like too much. And then you get upset because they only had a few bites. Well, look at the size of their fist, because a few bites may be the size of a portion
Mhm.
that they should be eating. And that's for each portion. So like if you have meat, grain, and vegetables, each portion is fist size. So be
Exactly.
realistic.
Great advice. And I want to encourage also, get your toddlers to help you in the kitchen to prepare it and
Absolutely.
measure and do things, and then they'll be more inclined to try to eat it, hopefully, because they had a part, again, what you said, Celia, about empowering your child and giving them choices and giving them more responsibility. So we've talked a
Yeah.
little bit about the tantrums, we've talked about nighttime routines, we've talked about picky eaters. What advice do you have about transitions? One of the most difficult things I remember, when difficult for me, when my twin boys went to preschool the first time, and it was only 3 mornings a week, but it was and I was concerned their nap schedules weren't going to be exactly the same, and everything is so different. What's your best advice for parents going through this transition about their very young children going to daycare for the first time, preschool, whatever it is, wherever they're going?
Well, make sure that you talk to whoever they're staying with. So if they're going to school, what's the policies of the school? Do they take naps? When do they take naps? What is the food policy? Do they get snacks? What are they eating? What are they drinking? Are they potty training at a certain age? What are they doing? Childcare, schools, any of that, learn their schedule. Because often when you go home, if you normally give your child a nap at 10 o'clock and every day at school he's going to bed at 11, then maybe you adjust at home so that it more closely matches what that schedule is at school. Also, remember that kids have a difficult time with separation.
Mhm.
So night times are hard because they miss you. They go to school, they miss you.
Mhm.
Don't ever avoid saying goodbye to your child because they're going to get upset. You have to say goodbye to them. Tell them, I'll be back soon. I'm going to work. I'll be back when work is over. Always tell them you're coming back, because the biggest fear for a child is their parents not coming back. They don't know you're not coming back until they learn
Right.
that when you go away, you come back.
Right.
Always, even when you put them to bed, I love you, honey. I'll see you in the morning. And
Mhm.
then it's morning time. You walk and go, oh, it's morning. So they relate the word morning to the time you come back.
Right.
Same with school, same with a babysitter. Honey, I will be back. They cry. Let me tell you, I've been running summer camps for over 40 years with 3 to 6-year-olds. And sometimes it's some of those kids' first experience leaving their parent.
Mhm.
They cry if you're at a good program They may cry when they leave, but then there's someone nurturing them and getting them involved in something. And usually like seconds to minutes,
Mhm.
they're having a blast.
Yeah.
So don't and please don't just look in the window. Do not look in the window. Let your experts take care of your children. They will be fine. They really will. And then they will learn how much fun it is when they're at a new program or a new place to stay.
And it all feeds their independence and their sense of self and really creating their own life. And I'm sure there are a million variables out there that people might be thinking. Those are the basics. And I encourage people again to please listen to your podcast, get your books. You have so much more information in there. And this is all such wonderful information about toddlers, Celia. And we have two questions that I'm going to actually, we had more, but I only have time for two that I'm going to ask you in our next segment so that you can respond directly to two of our viewers. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much. We'll be right back. It's time for the part of the show where we find out what our parents, our viewers, they're not just parents, they're grandparents, they're caregivers, educators. And these are the questions that we have today for your parenting destination. And Celia, our very first question today comes from Becky in Apple Valley, Oregon. And Becky wants to know your suggestions to speed up the morning routines with her two young children, ages 3 and 5. Becky says that every morning feels like a mad race to get their children out the door and get them to preschool and kindergarten so she can make it to work on time. What can Becky do?
So here's a great piece of advice, Becky, and thank you for your question. Mornings can get hectic, and if you're running around and you're yelling and you're screaming, it's a terrible start to your day for you and your children. So like we talked about routines, set up a consistent morning routine, make sure you have ample time, so an hour before you're ready to leave, and do this one extra step. And the one extra step is add 10 minutes of playtime with you before you have to walk out that door. If they get everything done, they get time to play with you for 10 or 15 minutes. You can pick out what you're going to play the night before so they go to bed remembering playtime. And then they'll be more willing to get stuff done because then they get time with you and they get to play and you get to connect before you all go your separate ways. So try that out and be consistent. Keep it going.
Keep it going. Great advice. And one other thought, I know some parents that got to the point where they said, you know what, I let my child pick out their clothes the night before and sleep in them. They were clean. They just had a bath. And we just got up and we ate and we did whatever we had to do. And we went and it worked. And somebody said, well, you know, is that going to set up, you know, bad routines for later on? I don't think so.
No, it won't. And the more you get done the night before, the less you have to do in the morning.
Right.
And absolutely let your kids help.
So sleep in their clothes. Let them
sleep in those clothes.
Okay, our second question, Celia, is from Dale in Cleveland. Dale's question is this: recently, my 4-year-old is not being honest when I ask her a question. She makes up stories or exaggerates the truth. I don't want to say she's lying, but she is. Is this a normal stage for a 4-year-old? And what suggestions do you have for me in how I respond to her?
Well, Dale, thank you again for your question. And one question I have is, how do you respond to her? If you're yelling a lot, if you're judging, if you're criticizing, the way you're speaking to her, she will be afraid of punishment. And the main reason a child lies is to avoid punishment. So if she feels like she's constantly getting punished for everything she does, she's going to start lying. Realize that lying comes from storytelling. And we storytell with our children from the moment they're born. Right. We tell stories, we read stories, we make up things, we play with dolls, cars, all kinds of things. That's where it all comes from. But the need to create it happens when your child is afraid they're going to get in trouble. So I advise you to start noticing the good your child's doing. Start recognizing the positive choices she's making. And don't just notice them, tell them that you noticed. Point
Right.
it out. Thank you so much for helping your brother. Thank you for helping me pick up those dishes without being asked, so that they know they do a lot more good than not so good.
Mhm.
Recognize the positive.
Excellent advice. And I think also sometimes little kids are so imaginative, as you said, they really may not understand, depending on how, if they're just 2 years old, it may
Right.
feel real to them. And so, we have to acknowledge that. And I just want to say one more thing is that we know that we all as human beings want attention.
Right.
And the behavior that gets the most attention is the behavior that we will see more of.
Absolutely.
And so if kids figure out, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do and I get yelled at a lot, I'm getting a lot of attention, even though it's not the kind of attention we want. It's, there's so much, Celia.
Absolutely. And keep in mind that kids don't even know the difference between fantasy and reality until they're 6 or 7 years old.
Right.
So to what you said, they may not know that
Right.
they're specifically lying about something,
Yeah.
because to them, it's all real. It's all reality. They don't have, that's why they see a little Mickey Mouse on TV and they go to a party and there's a 6-foot Mickey Mouse and they freak out.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah. It's so much. And again,
There is so much.
I know we could talk for 5 more hours, Celia, and you wouldn't be able to share all of the wonderful advice that you have. And so we are almost out of, excuse me, out of time right now. So would you please tell our viewers, where can they learn more about you, find your books, follow you on social media, and anything else that you would like them to know?
Well, I would love to. My books and Raising Happy Toddlers, guys, is a manual. You know how parents say kids don't come with a manual, so I wrote you one. So it is a manual to keep on your shelf, referred to whenever you need it. You'll find successful solutions to everyday things that you deal with over and over again. You can go to celiasbooks.com, celiasbooks.com. That will give you direct links to Amazon for my Raising Happy Toddlers book and my 3 children's books. You can also go on Instagram and follow me at parenting_expert_toddlers. I go live a lot. I do a lot of informational reels. There's a lot of free information on there. You can subscribe to my channel and get live Q&A sessions with me and master classes. Go to pumpedupparenting.com, learn all about it. And I am also on a mission to calm this whole world and really make people more responsible for the way they are with their kids, less violence, less anger. And you can check that all out at dayofcalm.org.
Well, thank you, Celia. And you are really helping to make the world a better place, one toddler, one child, one family at a time.
Absolutely.
And I want to close today with a quote that you gave me. But before I read it, I just want to say, with your toddlers, enjoy them. It feels like it's going to go on forever, but it's really such a short time in your child's
So
life.
fast.
And you have to be able to laugh at yourself, at them. And that leads me to your quote, Celia. And your quote is, laughter. It really is the best medicine.
Absolutely. Have fun. They are so fun. I can't even tell you how fun they are. They are so fun. Have a good time. Don't stress the small stuff. Have fun with them. The more fun you have, the more laughter you have, the less yelling and screaming and disappointment. And it will be a much healthier family.
Such great advice, Celia. Thank you so much for being my guest on Parenting GPS today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.